Distinguished guests, I'm honored to deliver this keynote speech at this session. I trust it will be a great opportunity to exchange constructive views on expanding global cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. The Indo-Pacific, a vast region spanning two oceans, is becoming an arena for global cooperation and competition. In recognition of the strategic importance of the region, countries around the world are presenting their respective Indo-Pacific strategies. The Republic of Korea, an Indo-Pacific country, benefited tremendously from the rules-based order in the region, and our next strides forward also depend on the peaceful, stable Indo-Pacific. In this light, the Republic of Korea unveiled its Indo-Pacific strategy last December. 2023 is the first year in the implementation of our Indo-Pacific strategy. Since we launched it, we have received warm support from countries around the world, especially those who share our core values, reflecting the heightened expectations for Korea's international contributions. Today, I will share with you how Korea plans to contribute to the Indo-Pacific region, focusing on 4 areas that require more regional and global cooperation out of the 9 core lines of the effort in our strategy. First, we will strengthen the cooperation in science and technology and help to close the digital gap in the region. President Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized in his speech at Harvard that we need a digital order that can ensure everyone a fair chance to enjoy the benefits of technology. In this light, we will seek to close the digital gap in the region and support the digital transformation. With a staggering pace of advances, critical and emerging technologies such as AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology have a massive impact on national security and competitiveness. Responding to the global competition over technologies, we will work on building international norms on emerging technologies. We will pursue mutually beneficial cooperation in science and technology with the countries of common values. Second, we will support the region's climate change response, energy transition, and energy security. The climate crisis is an existential threat for some of the Indo-Pacific countries. Major economies in the region are working to achieve the net zero targets. Along with the climate change, energy security has become an additional driving force for an accelerated energy transition after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Believing that nuclear power and clean hydrogen can bolster energy security and achieve carbon neutrality, we are accelerating the development of small modular reactors and trying to build a hydrogen ecosystem in the region. We are also committed to helping green transition and reducing technological and financial gap in the region. To this end, we will raise our green ODA share to above OECD DAC average levels by 2025. Third, we will enhance our development cooperation partnerships as important tools to pursue the above tasks. The Yoon Suk-yeol administration has set a goal of increasing the ODA volume to reach the world's top 10 levels, and is actively increasing the ODA budget. This year's ODA budget has increased by 21% from last year, but this might not be enough. Last but not least, we will strengthen non-proliferation and counterterrorism efforts across the region. In the face of a serious challenge posed by North Korea's nuclear program, we will work with the partners in the region, as well as the international community, towards complete denuclearization of North Korea. Furthermore, we will actively contribute to strengthening the non-proliferation norms in the Indo-Pacific region by engaging in multilateral discussions, as well as supporting developing countries build their non-proliferation capacity. In this regard, we condemn North Korea's so-called military reconnaissance satellite yesterday and clearly reaffirm international community's determination to denuclearize the North outweigh North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Regardless of what the regime calls it, the launch constitutes a flagrant violation of multiple UN security resolutions, threatening peace and stability of the Korean Peninsula, the entire region, and beyond. Without doubt, North Korea's nuclear program poses a clear challenge to non-proliferation regime of the Indo-Pacific. To effectively address the challenges on the regional and global scale, we need to put our heads together. During the Korea-EU summit in Seoul last week, the two presidents reaffirmed the commitments to cooperate in addressing various issues in the Indo-Pacific. We will work with the ASEAN countries in promoting their sustainable development in line with the Korea-ASEAN solidarity initiatives. Also, on the sidelines of G7 summit, President Yoon Suk-yeol and Indian Prime Minister Modi agreed the need for aligning Seoul's Indo-Pacific strategy and India's Act East policy. The joint declaration adopted during President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit to the United States reads, the two presidents acknowledged the importance of the Indo-Pacific voice. I agree that the factor which matters most is what countries in the Indo-Pacific region want. The first Korea-Pacific Islands Summit in Seoul this week is part of our efforts to understand the needs and demands of the Indo-Pacific. Today, we are honored to have ambassadors from our key partners in the Indo-Pacific region as panelists. I hope this session will also enable us to truly hear the Indo-Pacific voice. I look forward to your invaluable insights and perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you for your insightful speech, Second Vice Minister. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Chang Yoon-ha, who will moderate this session. Dr. Yoon-ha Chang is a research fellow at the Center for International Development and Cooperation, KWDI. She also teaches at Kyunghee University as a visiting professor 2018 to 2020, 2023, and assumes numerous advisory positions in the South Korean government. Prior to joining KWDI, she was a research fellow at the Center for International Studies at Yonsei University 2011 to 2012 and a visiting fellow at Harvard Yenching Institute 2008 to 2010. Her research interests include gender and development, global humanitarian assistance, SDGs, women, peace and security agenda, and North Korea. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Chang Yoon-ha.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. Good morning. It's great to see so many people filling in this space this morning. As was introduced, my name is Eun-ha Chang. I'm a research fellow at one of the major government institute of South Korea. It's great honor and pleasure and delight to be moderating this session with such highly esteemed dignitaries including our Vice Minister. And I hope today's session will be an insightful opportunity to gain the knowledge and wisdom from our participants. Please allow me to introduce the background of this session, and then I'll introduce our panelists today, and we will go into the panel discussion. So as a Vice Minister have briefly introduced, we all know that over the past years, the global community has witnessed unprecedented challenges, threats to peace and security, economy and trade, health, public health due to COVID-19, caused by war in Ukraine, climate change, and all this crisis. These were not only threats to the global level, regional level, but it's actually affecting our daily lives. You know, food prices are going up, our gas prices going up, and we have this pandemic coming all around us. So in the midst of this grim reality, very solemn reality, the strategic importance of Indo-Pacific region has risen over the past years. Indo-Pacific region, this is home to 3/5 of world population, 60% of global GDP, and actually I got to know this very recently that Indo-Pacific region contributed to 2/3 of global economic growth before the pandemic. So this was a very fast-growing region. It has 7 of the world's largest militaries in this region, and it's forefront of digital economy and technological development. Sorry. So because of this such significance, major powers are shifting their geopolitical and geostrategic focus with center of gravity coming towards this region. ASEAN endorsed ASEAN Outlook of the Indo-Pacific 2019. US announced its version of Indo-Pacific Strategy 2021. And its first sentence begins like this, blatantly asserting United States is an Indo-Pacific power. That's a very strong assertion. EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific came out in 2021. ROK authored its own 2022. Actually, Japan used to originally had this strategy in 2016. It has new version coming out very recently, 2023. Act East policy of India and ASEAN-India plan of action that has been there from 2010. And you have all this acronym, multilateral entities, Quad, IPEF, CPTPP. So while this region has this highly potential and everyone is actually looking into this region, we also have a lot of challenges, including poverty, inequality issues, environmental issues, and natural disaster, mega disasters are really focused in this region, and we have a lot of difficulties. So against this background, sustainable development and cooperation in Indo-Pacific region is really essential. And today's session, we'll be looking into this more concrete issue. Now we have strategy, we have framework, and now we need to put some flesh in it. So we are all at the forefront of actually implementing the strategy and policy, and I hope this session will be that with that objective, more of a brainstorming and more casual, and I hope more questions from audience as well. Okay, so without further ado, please allow me to briefly introduce our speakers today. To my left, we have Her Excellency Ambassador Maria Castillo Fernandez, Ambassador of the Delegation of the European Union to the ROK. Before coming to Korea, she was ambassador in Malaysia, and she is an expert in this region. So please welcome Ambassador. Okay, and next, we have His Excellency Ambassador Gandhi Sulisianto, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to ROK. He's from a very special background. He has extensive experience in the business area, one of the conglomerates in Indonesia. I hope he can give us a very fresh viewpoint today. Joining us as well, we have His Excellency Amit Kumar, Ambassador of the Republic of India to the ROK. He is a career diplomat in Indian Foreign Service. He has extensive experience in this region as well. Last but not least, we have Professor Park Ji-yeon, School of International Studies at Jeonbuk National University. She's one of the brightest women I've ever known. She's a really prolific writer, and I am just can't imagine how she manages all this family and her career and academic work. So please welcome Professor Park. Okay, so we will now begin our panel discussion. Our first speaker, Ambassador Fernandez, you have 10 minutes, and you can actually have this timekeeper on the right of your screen.
Thank you very much, Professor Chan. I'll try to stick to that time. Dear friends, colleagues, I just want to tell you why this region is so important for Europe and what is Europe's offer to the region in concrete terms. It's a region of a strategic importance, like we have mentioned. Not only 2/3 of global growth, as Professor Chang said, but for Europe, 40% of our trade passes through this region, through these waters. Do you know that every day 2,000 ships move and transport goods to Europe between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea? 2,000 ships. So our economic links are certainly growing bigger and stronger, and therefore you can imagine how important for us is the stability and freedom of navigation in this part, in this region. And also when fundamental freedoms, openness, rule-based order are threatened, and we see that around the world, not only in Europe, in the Indo-Pacific and elsewhere, we cannot be indifferent. Unfortunately, the global environment of security has been and continues to deteriorate, not only because there is less trust among partners, because there is a weakening of international law and multilateral rules, and that affects us all, but also because there is force and coercion on the rise. And you mentioned en passant, as we say in French, the increase of military expenditure that we see, not only in Europe because of Russia's illegal war in Ukraine, 30% since 2013, but this region has increased even more, 45% since 2013. So, dear friends, what I'm going to tell you is that we all have a clear stake in each other's security, that what happens in Europe now with the war in Ukraine matters to this side. What happens here with the tensions in Asia, Korean Peninsula, Vice Foreign Minister mentioned, Taiwan Strait, South China Sea, whatever happens here matters and has an impact in Europe as well. And we have a lot of common challenges. Professor Chan, you mentioned some, but supply chains are stretched, and that affects us all. Inflation destabilizes all our countries, not only Europe. Energy prices, you mentioned, competition on technology, cyber threats, climate change, of course. The climate change fate and the health of the oceans will be decided in this part of the world. What is Europe's offer? What do we want to do here? Well, it's very clear in our Indo-Pacific strategy and very simple. We want to step up our engagement. We pledge for a growing engagement with partners. We invite partners to join us to address all these global challenges that we cannot do, neither you nor us alone. So certainly deepen partnership, that's what we are going to do with not only Korea, but with India and Indonesia, which I have here sitting next to me, and ASEAN. And it's an invitation for more dialogue to address all these issues. We need to act together and to deliver concrete results. On the 13th of May, some weeks ago in Stockholm, there was the meeting of foreign ministers of the Indo-Pacific including both India and Jakarta, representing ASEAN. And there is certainly from them, there was what we take, a very strong commitment on the UN Charter. Because we all, as I said, have a stake in each other's security, but what is at stake here is the whole principles of international law, UN Charter, that we have all been adhering to, and therefore this is key for you, but this is key also for us. Vice Foreign Minister Lee Do-hoon mentioned it clearly. We want to know what countries want, and we need to take their interest into account. We need to listen more. We need to understand better. We need to get closer to each other. This is a two-way relationship. It's not one way. And I think that is how we understand it. This is about what we can do together on equal footing. This is not about what Europe can do in and for the Indo-Pacific. Let us be clear. So we are ready to act in a broader palette of cooperation with a long-term commitment to this region, to our partners in this region. And let me mention some of the areas where, you have the Indo-Pacific strategy, most of you have read it. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to come out with some clear examples of what we are already doing now. First, what we called trusted connectivity. We need to increase our connectivity. We need to get to know each other, get closer together for our economic links, for our people-to-people links. I see a lot of students here. How important in all our relations is the younger generation, that they get out, that they see more, that they bring us together, and that is certainly very important. We have to have a more strategic investment in the region through a big program that we call the Global Gateway. We have done already, since we started a year ago, 20 very clear projects that go from hydropower investment to solar energy, railways, ports, the Jakarta Metro. That is something concrete. Connectivity partnership with Japan, with India. So a big investment on connectivity. And this is roads, this is ports, this is airports, something that people see in terms of concrete. We also want to build a concrete partnership on security and defense. You say that means tailored partnership. We offered, and we agree at the EU-Korea summit last week to try to start working on a security partnership. We are doing that also with Japan. And that means Europe as a security provider. Yeah, perhaps people think we are only an economic provider. I always don't tire myself of saying we are not only that. We are a security provider. Security matters a lot for us. And you will see us more. The idea is to have this minimum EU naval presence in the Indo-Pacific. You see some port calls from frigates from different EU countries. We are working together in the northwest Indian Ocean with the coordinated maritime presence of vessels, with projects like we call Crimario in the Indian Ocean, with a project for security in Asia. And we will see much more maritime security as part of our key areas. I remember at the beginning of the month, we were sitting in the deck of a French frigate in the port of Incheon. That is something concrete. We were sitting there speaking about maritime security on the deck of the frigate. So between Korean and European officials, naval officials. That is something concrete. When I was there, I said, whoa, we've come to this. This is important. But not only that, dear friends, everyone knows about the piracy operation in Somalia, where we have been working with a lot of partners in the region. The Atalanta operation, we want to extend that. That has been a very big success story of global cooperation to try to stop piracy. But now there's not only piracy, it's illegal drugs, illegal arms trafficking. So to extend that and to do much, much more together. Cybersecurity is a big threat to all of us. And this is a very difficult area which goes between the digital and the security. So, and this is a topic that we all have to find solutions to, and we need to do it together. Counterterrorism, hybrid threats, transnational crimes, all these will be part of our security agenda. Third, digital partnerships, certainly important. We are doing one with Japan, Singapore, and Korea. We already launched that with Korea last year. That is concrete. This is getting together to discuss standards, norms, to discuss more accrued research comparisons. So the two topics that Vice Foreign Minister mentioned before, research, very important, norm setting, very important. This is about working together to develop also help with Korea, as Vice Foreign Minister mentioned, to try to cut this digital gap, which we find very acute in many countries in the Indo-Pacific. With India, we are doing the Trade and Technological Council, where we speak about all these issues. So there is concrete things coming. And this is what we are working. Of course, green transition, my fourth point, very important. This is about a Green-Blue Alliance with the Pacific Islands. I know you had this week the Pacific Island Summit here. The green transition is key for them, very important. We have a green partnership with Korea, also adopted in the summit, a green alliance with Japan, and with Indonesia, the just energy transition partnerships with Indonesia, Vietnam, which allow us to help to get to that net zero 2050 goal that we are all very ambitious, but we need to work together. But this is also to promote energy diversification and energy security, because the energy demand in a region that is so dynamic and growing, it will be very, very important. And without saying, an extensive network of free trade agreements that we have. The one we did with Korea was the first one and an example for all the region. And after 11 years, I tell you, it's working very well. So active negotiations with Indonesia, Australia, India. When I was working with India, we were trying to convince the Indian to get into the negotiations. I'm very happy to see you now on board. I'm still working on the Malaysia part. But we relaunch with Thailand and hope we can relaunch with Malaysia soon. So very important to work together, like we are going to do with the Republic of Korea, in the Pacific countries, supporting digitalization, supporting carbon neutrality, countries that need to go through that green transition, and supporting transport corridors. Then link it again with my connectivity point. Dear friends, do you know what Pacific means? Pacific, it was a Spaniard, in fact, that decided to put Pacific to the Pacific Ocean. Because it was very calm waters. So let's use that word calm, let's use that word peace, and try to make a space of peace and prosperity in the Pacific, like in ancient times. And to maintain the word Pacific, not only in the Pacific, but all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. I did not know Pacific, yes. So she has actually gave us a panoramic view on what EU is actually doing in this region, with more concrete examples of trusted connectivities that not only includes economic, but people-to-people exchanges and cooperation. Strategic investment in infrastructure projects, security and defense military cooperation, digital partnership, green transition, free trade agreement, and etc. So Thank you for giving us that concrete some examples. Then we can really feel that what's going on vis-a-vis EU and in this region. So our next speaker, His Excellency Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, the moderators. His Excellency Vice Minister Lee Do-hoon and panelist fellows, His Excellency Maria, EU ambassadors, and His Excellency Amit Kumar from India ambassadors, and Professor Park, sorry. All right, so good morning, annyeonghaseyo, selamat pagi. So my name is Gandhi Sulistianto. I'm the ambassador of Indonesia to Republic of Korea. Not in the, because although my face looks like a Korean, but I'm purely Indonesian. I representing my country, Indonesia, in Korea. So first of all, I would like to express my profound gratitude to Jeju Forum for inviting me to this important event. As mentioned earlier, the Indo-Pacific has become an important topic discussion as it's remained one of the world's most dynamic and fastest growing regions. The Indo-Pacific remains the power center of world geopolitics. I think just also mentioned by moderators that Indo-Pacific represents about 60% of the global economy. And don't forget that Indo-Pacific also represents 65% of the world population. So Indonesia, as the biggest country in Southeast Asia, views the importance of Indo-Pacific region for the following reasons. First, geographically, the location of Indonesia is the strategic significance to the Indo-Pacifics. The second is territory for west to east, connect to the Indian Ocean and Pacific Oceans. Third, Indonesia engaged in many cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, such as ASEAN, APEC, ARF, FIALAX, and IPEF, or Indo-Pacific Economic Frameworks. Indonesia has developed strategic partnership with countries in the region, especially with US, China, Japan, Australia, South Korea, and my neighbor India. With all this fact, Indonesia lays the important strategy of Indo-Pacific politically and economically. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia this year assumed as an ASEAN chairmanship with the theme, the ASEAN Matters, ASEAN Epicentrum of Growth. This theme partly reflects both internal and external challenges faced by ASEAN. Indonesia came up with 3 pillars of ASEAN chairmanship. The first one is ASEAN Matters. The second one is Epicentrum of Growth. And the last one is implementation of ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. On the pillar of ASEAN Matters, Indonesia wants to strengthen ASEAN unity, ASEAN centrality, and ASEAN capacity to address current future challenges. That's why we have what we call Vision 2045. ASEAN should be more responsive and adaptive in facing future challenges. On the second theme, the epicentrum of growth, Indonesia wants to solidify regional mechanism in dealing with external economic shock. ASEAN must become a peaceful region and anchor of global stability and prosperity. And ASEAN is not a proxy to any major power in the world. And on the implementation of the AOIP, or ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific or IOIP pillars, Indonesia aimed to build an inclusive regional architecture to have concrete cooperation in 4 priority areas, which are maritime cooperation, connectivity, UN Sustainable Goals for 2030, and economic and possible areas of cooperation. This is 4 areas of IOAP pillars. The implementation of the IOAP shows to ensure that the ASEAN remain a platform for dialogue and cooperation towards continued progress, peace, and prosperity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, during the 42nd ASEAN Summit in Labuan Bajo, Indonesia, Komodo Island, on last 2 weeks, 10 to 11 May 2023, ASEAN reaffirmed the common interest to maintain, promote peace, stability, and prosperity in South Asia and the wider Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean region. ASEAN leaders also agreed to engage with the wider Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean to promote inclusiveness. With this idea, ASEAN aimed to develop cooperation with Pacific Island Forum and the Indian Ocean Rim Association. ASEAN will invite the chair of Pacific Island Forum and Ocean Rim Association summit in November this year. This development shows that ASEAN aims to engage and expand cooperation with other region organizations to create peace and prosperity in the region. I believe that Indo-Pacific must be an inclusive region architecture. This means that we have to engage all countries inside or outside the region to promote peace and prosperity in the region. No country should be left behind or excluded. Small countries' interests must be respected. No country dominates or no country is dominated. I also believe that Indo-Pacific must be also the region of dialogue and cooperation to solve challenges based on common interests. All countries must be engaged to tackle region problems such as climate change, energy and food security, and others. An inclusive region is the key to creating a peace and prosperous and resilient Indo-Pacific by building an inclusive regional architecture in Indo-Pacific. Cooperation can be intensified, distrust can be eroded, miscalculation that can lead an open conflict can be prevented. Thus, I believe that ASEAN can play a great role in building an inclusive region architecture in the Indo-Pacific region. With ASEAN centrality and ASEAN-led mechanism, ASEAN will be able to engage all countries and become an honest broker to mediate competing interests in Indo-Pacific. Thank you. Hamsamida.
Thank you, Ambassador. He has especially enlightened us on as Indonesia as an ASEAN leader this year, and he mentioned 3 pillars of ASEAN's initiative, which is ASEAN Matters, Epicenter of Growth, and implementation of the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific. And also I was very impressed how you put an emphasis on the inclusiveness dialogue, no one left behind. And I think this is a true spirit of ASEAN, a very distinct feature of ASEAN, and I really appreciate that. Next, now goes to our ambassador from India, His Excellency. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. His Excellency Vice Minister Lee Do-hun, fellow panelists, Ambassador Maria, Ambassador Gandhi, Ms. Park. I'm really delighted to be part of this panel discussion on expanding global cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. And at the outset, I would like to thank Vice Minister Lee Do-hun for also sharing his insights on this vitally important topic. Previous speakers have talked about the importance of the Indo-Pacific region, so I will not go over those arguments. But suffice it to say that given the centrality of the Indo-Pacific region to global affairs, our deliberations today are very timely and relevant. Several countries and groups have announced their strategy and vision for the region. Our own approach was outlined by Prime Minister Modi at the Shangri-La Dialogue in 2018. Our common prosperity and security requires us to evolve through dialogue, a common rules-based order for the region, to ensure access to global commons, to ensure connectivity, to ensure fair and balanced trade, to ensure supply chain resilience, and many other aspects. And I think sharing of experiences and best practices, as well as exploring synergies and what we all are doing in the region, is important to advancing the overall objective of a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. The world has recently gone through a difficult period of COVID-19 pandemic. Climate change, natural disasters, and health-related challenges were already prevalent. We are now seeing problems in supply chains of food, fuel, and fertilizers. And the impact of these challenges have been felt most by developing countries. I just want to take a minute to talk about our G20 presidency this year, the theme of which is One Earth, One Family, and One Future, which essentially views the world as one family. And implicit in this is the basic premise that many of the global challenges today will require global collaborative solutions. And as some of the previous speakers have mentioned, it is important to listen to the countries in the region, to talk about their issues, expectations, and aspirations. In terms of my remarks on the Indo-Pacific region, I want to share our approach to development assistance and some of the initiatives that we have taken which are bearing on issues like climate change, also impact directly on the region. As some of you might know, India has a long track record of development assistance projects, big and small, covering 78 countries. These projects are demand-driven. They rely on a consultative approach. They are undertaken transparently. They are financially sustainable with due regard for sovereignty and territorial integrity. Another key aspect for us is that these projects should lead to empowerment of local communities, and these projects should be environmental friendly. India has also helped with capacity building initiatives by sharing our experiences in diverse areas such as digital technology, health, security, climate change, and so on. It has also worked with some partners on capacity building initiatives in Africa. Since the third summit of the Forum of India and Pacific Island Cooperation was held last month at Port Moresby, let me refer to some of the recent and newly announced projects. This will provide a sense of the scale of development projects that we undertake. So for example, we have built a convention center in Palau, a waste management project in Nauru. We provided seeds for cyclone-affected farmers in Fiji and built a solar light project in Kiribati. We also recently launched the Sustainable Coastal and Ocean Research Institute at the University of South Pacific in the Fiji. We have established a mechanism that allows the Pacific Island countries to access the remote sensing data from the Indian satellite network that they can use for their national development plans. On the health side, India will set up a super specialty cardiology hospital in Fiji to serve all the PICs, assist in setting up advanced dialysis units, and provide sea ambulances to all the 14 Pacific Island countries. And the Center of Excellence for IT in Papua New Guinea will be upgraded and transformed into a regional information technology, and cybersecurity hub. We have also extended development assistance to countries in the ASEAN region, in our neighborhood, in Africa, and other parts. As you know, India is also the member of the Quad, which brings together the US, Japan, Australia, and India together. We believe it has established itself as an important platform, and through our shared efforts, we are giving practical dimensions to our vision of a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. Our positive cooperation is growing in areas like climate change, disaster management, strategic technologies, reliable supply chain, health security, maritime security, and counter-terrorism. Let me now turn to a couple of our multilateral initiatives. The Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, CDRI, was launched by Prime Minister Modi at the UN Climate Action Summit in September 2019 in New York. Presently, the coalition consists of 39 member states and 8 international organizations. Under the CDRI, the Infrastructure for Resilient Island States was launched at COP26 in Glasgow in 2021, which aims to support small island developing states in achieving disaster resilience and sustainable development. And this is also pertinent for island countries in the Indo-Pacific. CDRI has already begun to organize technical assistance and capacity building workshops. And in November last year, it also announced the first infrastructure resilience accelerator fund of $50 million at COP27 in Egypt. Prime Minister Modi had also announced the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative at the East Asia Summit held in Bangkok in November 2019. The IPOI advances practical cooperation as an open initiative, drawing on existing regional cooperation architecture and mechanisms to focus on 7 central pillars on which different countries have taken the lead and organized different activities. For example, Japan leads the connectivity pillar with India. France and Indonesia lead the marine resource pillar of IPOI. Singapore leads the science, technology, and academic cooperation pillar. The United Kingdom co-leads the maritime security pillar with India. Australia leads the marine ecology pillar. And other pillars include capacity building and disaster risk reduction, with the latter led by India. I believe that the transformations underway in India, like the digital public delivery and green growth initiatives, and our own development experience merit attention. As I mentioned, we have a long track record of extending development assistance and capacity building initiatives. And as we grow our capacity to do so, we'll further expand. We have fairly robust dialogue with partners in the region, with EU, with Indonesia, with ASEAN, with ROK, with Japan, amongst others, on developments in the Indo-Pacific. So we are ready to explore synergies with partners and how we can expand cooperation agenda in the Indo-Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ambassador Kumar has walked us through very concrete examples of, and also initiatives that India is taking in this region. He talked about the development cooperation that India is partaking in Africa, with actually in the Pacific Island countries that I did not know. So that was very helpful that you're doing so many activities already. He also talked about the Quad initiative, that some of the activities that Indonesia is involved, some multilateral mechanisms, including the disaster management initiatives, and also this Indo-Pacific Ocean initiatives and some of the very concrete projects going on there. So thank you so much for that speech. And also, I liked when you mentioned that you do this in a consultative approach, talking with the locals and receiving their inputs. So thank you for that. Okay, so they were not very bad on time management. So our last but not least speaker, Professor Park, she will be giving us a little more specific cases of this project, cooperation project. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for a very kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. I am Jiyeon Park from Jeonbuk National University, which is in South Korea. Thank you very much for inviting me to this meaningful gathering together. I'm particularly excited to have an opportunity to share my opinions with top expertise in discussing the regional cooperation strategies, and personally expecting a very valuable insight for my research. Okay, today, as Dr. Zhang mentioned that, I have my research area which is about the digital cooperation matter. So I would like to share some ideas about the cooperation for digital transformation in the Indo-Pacific. So firstly, I will briefly introduce how digital cooperation is related to the challenges in the South Korean government Indo-Pacific strategy. Then I will move to discuss the key aspects of digital cooperation during the digital transformation era. Then thirdly, I will talk about the necessity of establishing a new digital index as the foundation of digital cooperation. Then I would like to emphasize the importance of establishing a better digital inclusiveness index for the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, the Korean government, as we already know that, announced the strategy for free, open, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region earlier this year. As a member of Indo-Pacific region, Korea emphasized the importance of cooperation in this region, as the peace and prosperity of Indo-Pacific region are directly linked to Korea's peace and prosperity. Specifically, 9 key areas of focus have been selected and actively cooperated by the Korean government these days. And the digital cooperation I'm going to discuss today is interconnected with 3 of these key areas: strengthening cooperation in critical domains of social science and technology, and close the digital gap; engage in contributive diplomacy through tailored development cooperation partnerships; and promote mutual understanding and exchanges. Digital cooperation should no longer be limited to simple technological cooperation. It should be based on the deep mutual understanding and directly contribute to the overall development of each society. Digital cooperation in this era of digital transformation has the characteristic of addressing a more comprehensive scope than traditional digital cooperation. In the past, as we all know that all the discussions was related to the infrastructure matter. So ICT infrastructure was the main topic to discuss about digital cooperation in the past. That's about the first year. And later on, the focus shifted to the how well the society could utilize the networks provided by this infrastructure. At that time, we focused on the education on internet uses. That was the major area for the cooperation in international stage. That's about the second tier. Now, the key is to go beyond the tier 1 and tier 2 and promote the collaboration that enable digital technologies and capabilities to be effectively utilized and function in a society. In other words, cooperation that contribute to the digital transformation in a socially and culturally acceptable manner has become a major task of digital cooperation. So we need to consider about social and cultural aspect to discuss about the digital cooperation. That's the main point. In order to do such cooperation, there needs to be a common language among partners. There is a need for some form of agreement on what constitutes an ideal digital transformation. And generally, these discussions can be summarized in the form of the index. So what indicators should be used to set the direction of development? Existing digital-related indexes have limitations in capturing social cultural aspects. So we might review the previous example that for example, the UN indicators, they use the digital development cooperation mainly focus on the digital infrastructure, technologies, and also they focus on the human capacity. Recently, some indicators, they like Economist Internet Inclusive Index or Dell Digital Transformation Index, those index, they have the story about social and cultural aspect. They focus on what kind of things they need in the global south, in the developing country. However, they don't have any story about the Indo-Pacific area. So we might focus on how we can develop the idea in terms of establishing new indicators in terms of digital transformation, especially for the Pacific Island and also the countries in the Pacific. Therefore, there are the need to develop a better digital inclusive index. Digital inclusiveness is not simply about increasing the level of mobile phone ownership or improving internet speed for the female users. That's the traditional way to understand. Once again, understanding the cultural acceptance of digital transformation is the key. So the reason why women have low digital activity level differ in each country. So even if many women are exposed to the digitalization, their level of satisfaction may vary. Certainly, specific issues such as how the contents addressed in the digital transformation is consumed culturally, socially, should be included in the scope of digital transformation, digital cooperation. Such cooperation can only be discussed in the cooperation with local partners from the beginning point, and through close cooperation with partners, a social cultural language for the communication with partner countries can be established. As a result, strategies and tasks based on a better inclusiveness index that also reflects social cultural acceptability can be proposed, enabling truly effective cooperation. Therefore, Korea and the countries in the Pacific should pursue cooperation for the development of a better digital inclusiveness index. That might be the first project. Based on the result obtaining from the index matter, and they should jointly explore and promote cooperation in the field of digital cooperation and tasks as a second stage of cooperation. Providing only what Korea can do the best can lead to various side effects in the partner states. So we should consider about what might be the best way for them in the local level even. In fact, similar project has been pursued between KOICA, which is Korean Agency for International Cooperation, and Central Asian countries. The Korean government can contribute to establishment a close partnership in the Pacific region, just same as what we've done in Central Asian countries, based on the expertise of organizations like KOICA. So once again, cooperation should be based on the mutual understanding. It's not one-way project, it's like the cooperation. So even though we consider about the digital cooperation, which sounds like a really technical way, we still need to know their thinking, and our mutual understanding can be the most important part. We need to cooperate to figure out. Thank you very much for the listening.
Thank you, Professor Park. Based on her research, the conclusion that she got out of her research was not really any, all this nitty-gritty technical details, but more, as she was continuously emphasizing inclusiveness. We have to know the partner. We have to listen to the partners. We have to talk to them about their culture and norms, and that factor should be included in making the indices, and that's where we can start actually in this cooperation. So thank you so much for all our panelists. We actually have about 14 minutes left before ending this session. We were planning to actually have a little bit of dialogue, question and answer amongst ourselves. But looking at the audience, we have a huge audience from Japan and also other countries, and I'm sure you have some questions or comments about our session. So I'd like to actually just directly open to the audience for questions or comments, especially from experts from Japan. If you can add your views on our session, that would be great contribution to this dialogue. Anyone from the audience? Yes, please. Mike. Please give mic to the. Please introduce yourself. Direct your question to anyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Otaka. I'm from Japan. I'm serving as the vice chairman of a Persona Group company, which is an HR company in Japan. Of course, we have set up almost all branches in overseas, in particular Southeast Asian countries. And I have some comments on EU as well as Southeast Asian countries. I'm quite impressed with the 2,000 vessels transferring between two countries, two regions, which is amazing. However, looking at the Ukraine invasion, we feel that the importance of unity of the democratic countries, we should really understand what important we should keep the freedom. So I hope that EU countries keep supporting Ukraine. And second comment which I have, Japan has just finished G7 under the leadership of Kishida Prime Minister. I believe that is quite successful with in particular inviting Indo-Pacific leaders. And all these three countries, the leader also joined for that. That was really upgraded the result of our announcement. My question to all of you is that we should not anymore pursue the superpower. We cannot rely on the superpower. Each one of us should feel the responsibility to stabilize and to develop the countries. In that connection, future of the Indo-Pacific regions its importance is not just insisting what we are doing. Rather, we are pursuing the common platform which we can share, just like IT area, as Dr. Park mentioned. So that I would like to listen to all of your comments one piece by piece. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the comment and insightful comments. Actually, I'll do this. Because I'm assuming that more of you have questions, so why don't we take one or two more questions together and then have each panelist comment, incorporating all of the comments from the audience. Anyone else from the floor? Yes, in the front. Mike, please. Please introduce yourself and direct your question to one of the panelists.
多摩大学経営情報学部2年生の井上慶太郎と申します。貴重なお話をいただきありがとうございます。質問は、全員に該当すると思います。はい。で、今回のワードとして、安全保障のためと経済のためっていうふうな、お話があったのですが、私としては経済のためがメインであって、安全保障は二の次として考えられているのではないかというふうに考えております。で、こちらを、日本で考えたときに、日本とアメリカの関係性は、アメリカが日本の安全保障のために 沖縄に米軍基地をアメリカの基地を置いているのですが、7割程度アメリカの基地の7割程度が、沖縄にあります。で本来安全のために海外からの脅威を考えたとき、北海道などに置くことが、日本の安全を守るための安全保障になるのではないと考えております。でなぜアメリカが日本に米軍基地を置いているかというと、それはアジアへの経済への拡大だと考えていて、安全保障のためと言いながら結局は、自国の利益のために、各国は動いているのではないかというふうに疑問に思いました。以上です。
Okay. Okay, so his question was more on economic aspect of Japanese intention of having the military base in Okinawa. Maybe if you have any opinion, you can also comment later. I'll take one more question and now and then listen to the panelists. Yes, in the back, could you please give mic?
Thank you. My name is John. I teach at the Mahatma Gandhi University in India. And my question is to Ambassador Gandhi. In your presentations, you mentioned about the ASEAN matters as one of the thrust areas of Indonesia's ASEAN chair. Where you mentioned about the ASEAN centrality. So could you give us a sense about the thought behind the ASEAN centrality as an important, and if you think there is a challenge to it, could you please elaborate on that aspect? Thank you.
Okay, so for these three comments and questions, we will proceed in the same order. Just give us your opinion on these three topics.
Well, thank you very much for your first question on the importance of freedom, of course. And this is, as I said, this is not the West against the others. This is about United Nations Charter principles that we all countries have adhered to, and we need to respect. This is about fundamental values that are in the UN Charter: territorial integrity, sovereignty, the possibility of use of force if you are attacked on your own territory. These are all key United Nations principles. I can assure you that European Union and European countries will support Ukraine as long as it takes. That is a clear statement said by the European leaders and all the European heads of state. Second, each country is responsible for the development of its own future, but our future is so interlinked, as I said. We have, the world has a shared responsibility in so many issues. Japan cannot isolate itself. Japan needs partners. We all need partners. So the importance of re-engaging with partners who share the same values, who share common interests, and listen to partners, as I said, is absolutely key. On your question, that is more important economy than security, I think you cannot dislink it now. Economic security is the key word. Security, everything in the economy can be weaponized. We have seen it with the Russians' illegal war in Ukraine. We have seen it with some countries trying to do economic coercion and threaten through Putin, some countries putting also national security above economy. So today, economy and security are very interlinked. You cannot think in terms of separating them. So, and for you in your future, you will be a future manager or a future leader, you will have to deal with that even more. This is the beginning. This is about, we have seen how difficult it is to be so dependent economically in certain sectors of one country. Look what happened with Russia and Europe on the energy side. We were so dependent on Russia on energy, and now we managed to cut down those dependencies. But everything now, we are all dependency also on critical materials with other countries. So you have to, it comes together. Unfortunately, you cannot separate them. And to ASEAN, I also say that ASEAN matters to ASEAN, but ASEAN matters a lot to all of us. It's at the center of our Indo-Pacific strategy of all of us. It's certainly, I mean, I've been living in ASEAN, and I can see the dynamism, the cultural diversity. I would like to see more ASEAN. I'm not comparing at all with the European project. It's completely different, but more integrated, more that I can go from Malaysia to Jakarta without the need to show the passport. You know, those kind of people-to-people examples that that are truly, that make people to flow over ASEAN countries in a bigger way, that will allow them more of this centrality, more of this connection, that will be very useful in the future.
2 minutes, okay. It's very fast. All right. So there are 3 questions. Number 1 is about the superpower, and then what is the role of the, some countries that is really, really involved in this world. So as I mentioned in my explanation, Mr. Yutaka, that actually the ASEAN is, as I mentioned this, as a part of the epicentrum of growth, and Indonesia want to solidify regional mechanism. In this case, ASEAN must be a peaceful region and anchor of the global stability and prosperity. And the most important thing that I mentioned, that the ASEAN will not be a proxy to any major power. This is actually it's clear in the position of the ASEAN on this case. So in case of the student question related to the economics, competition in the world, I think as an Indonesian policy for the, in the foreign affairs matters, that Indonesian is follow what we call the freedom and independence. So we are not in the one-sided to other countries in the world. Especially, actually, on that case is we are talking about the economic. The economic, money doesn't have citizenship in the world. So you can flow wherever they want, For Indonesian, actually, whoever is benefit for our country, we will be a friend and make a friendship forever. So whoever they are, whatever they do, as long as, give us a comfortable and benefit for our peoples and our country, let's do it together. Okay, for John, you are, teaching the Mahatma Gandhi. I'm proud of my names mentioned in your university, although it's nothing to do with my ancestor actually. But you are talking about you are asking about the ASEAN matters and ASEAN centrality, all right? So I will repeating my explanation before, that with ASEAN centrality, the ASEAN lead mechanism, ASEAN will be able to engage all countries and become the honest broker. This is important. The honest broker, as a broker, you cannot be sided one to the others. So that is honest broker and mediate competing interests within the Indo-Pacific countries. That is actually what is the means of the ASEAN centrality. But I think if allow me, I will give some, my time to my staff to explain related to the politics, because he is in charge on the politics. Mr. Sigit, you may add something or enough? Okay, after this. You can discuss further with him in deep, because I have only 2 minutes. Anyway, right time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think I fully agree with the EU ambassador that economics and security, it is quite evident that they are indivisible. We cannot be viewing them through different lenses. It is also evident that many of the challenges that we face today in the world cannot be dealt by one country or a few countries. It will truly require a global collaborative effort. And having said that, I think it is important to therefore identify and underline a few common principles. And so I'll just repeat what I had already said, that our common prosperity and security will require us to evolve through dialogue, a common rule-based order for the region. And I think one cannot really argue with some of these principles. Should you not have access to global commons? Should you not ensure fair, balanced trade, supply chain resilience? Should you not have connectivity and so on? However, when we look at cooperation, we should also, as I said earlier, consult each other, but there's no need to really reinvent the wheel every time for every region. What you need is to see what has worked in other places, on how you can adapt to your situations. And one key aspect that I wish to underline is that in many of the initiatives that we have taken, our focus is to keep the structure light and be heavy on practical cooperation. So thank you.
Maybe quick answer for the first and second question. I totally agree with the saying that we better not depending on the superpower, but we better cooperate all together. I think that's the best answer, how we can keep our safety by ourselves and etc. And for the second question, we need to remember that we always mention that peace and prosperity. Economy matter, security matter, that's come all together. So we have the keywords. When we discuss about the cooperation, we always mention that the peace and prosperity. So maybe we can think like that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before closing, I'd like to recap and give a little bit of my comments, my views to this wonderful session that we had for the past 80 minutes. I think I can summarize 3 points. First of all, the most often heard word was inclusiveness. Yeah, for all of us, from all of you. And I think this is, we can, the takeaway from this is that, there's an English American saying, the feeling is mutual. I think the cooperation is mutual, has to be mutual. We have to listen to each other. Second, when we talk about peace, security in the Pacific, Asia, Europe, let's not forget that our focus really should be on people in the end. And that's why I was very glad to hear when you mentioned about capacity building among Indonesian projects. And this actually, no one should be left behind. And that's why in this context, I really would like to applaud our student audience today. You are the future. You should be the ones who will be living in this different setting from now. So I'd like to welcome you and thank you. Third, last point would be when I was hearing this speaker speak, the one country that remained in my heart, that really boggled my heart, was none other than North Korea. Somehow North Korea is kind of erased these days from international scene. Security-wise, it's very worrisome. But when I think about North Korean people, my heart is breaking. And I'm just hoping that all these talks about cooperation among these Indo-Pacific countries, somehow in the later, when all these sanctions and these are gone, we can actually engage North Korea as well. So with this, I'd like to end this session and thank you all for coming at this early hour. Thank you.